Yo, 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 yo. Pop a 40 and check your rollies. It's crime time.
Brooklyn, Brooklyn. We're bringing it. We're bringing the hood to you. We're bringing it. What you gonna do? We're bringing it. We're bringing the hood to you. We're bringing it. Yeah, that's how. Hey, yo, no more Hollywood.
Oh no! I missed it. I missed the clickback. Clickback.
It's fine.
It was
I'm
almost.
dude, I am more mad at you for waiting till week 16 of the season to hit us with that drop. That was the best intro we could have ever had, and then you waited till the end of the damn season. How dare you?
Hey, week 16, baby. We had to come correct. You know what it is? 1 week away till Christmas. Matty, Kiwoom, Cody, Carpentier here on the hurdle. I don't even know what episode it is anymore. Maybe 110, 111, 112. Don't matter. We're here again talking to you guys about all things fantasy and NFL football. We just came onto the show talking about Mike Vick going to Norfolk State. And I don't know if we ever addressed the Bill Belichick thing last week because I think it happened over the course of the last 6 days. I think it happened, last Wednesday?
We talked about it briefly. No, actually, we talked about it on the walkthrough.
Yes. But not on the hurdle. The hurdle, the people need to know our quick thoughts because we lost my favorite podcast, period, which is the GM Shuffle. We lost Lombo maybe for good for podcasting. It sure seemed like he was like putting that in his, obviously he's now a GM, but it seems like he's putting that kind of in his rear view. He's been writing books. Now he gets his final GM job. I feel like once he's done, he's probably going to be done. Bill, probably the same thing. We're probably not going to get any more content. We got a good run out of Bill from the content game. Now we kind of pivot our focus to John Gruden, who is kind of getting poached by Barstool. But I just like to get your thoughts, Matty, on the hurdle here. Untapped, 1 week down, Bill Belichick in North Carolina. You think this is real? You think it's fake?
I think it's real until I think it's real. But I mean, if you look at the contract, he could clearly leave like by June to become an NFL head coach. I do think though that this is a cool approach for him. I mean, he wants to coach and he said, screw it. It's obviously like a downgrade. You know, he's chasing Don Shula and now he's starting over in a new endeavor at 73 years old. Yeah. But I mean, I think ironically, and I've, some people up here in the Boston area have been giving Belichick some flack for going to UNH. He didn't even go to a blue blood school, yada, yada, yada. But the Jumpman logo, the Tar Heels logo, that brand is massive. So I think it's a low-key great spot for you to go to. I don't think there's not a lot of pressure from boosters. Expectations are low. And you kind of build it from the ground up. And I get this impression after hearing, Lombardi and Belichick talk about it briefly is they're going to let them – UNC is going to let those guys build a program in their vision. They are not going to get in their way. And I think this could be a cool thing for Belichick and for, Lombardi and everyone he brings over as a cool experiment. Is the college game that much, is it that much closer to the NFL game? And we'll find out.
I don't know. We're going to see. I believe in Lombardi. I think they got a quarterback already, an offensive lineman already. We'll see how that whole thing unfolds. I thought it was interesting in a press opportunity. Actually, no, it wasn't a press opportunity. It was on the McAfee show. He was asked about the wins, and he basically said, I never looked at the wins. I just looked at the rings and the championships, which I thought was a cool way of saying it because he's got 8 of them rings in totality, which is as good as it gets. So maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. I can't believe a guy like that would be, yeah, man, I'm good just being like a season or season and a half short of victories from being the greatest unequivocally. Like, I think he's already considered the greatest, but like unequivocally the most, like, I don't know. I just think that's interesting that he would just say, yeah, it doesn't really matter to me, but is what it is. It's college football, baby. Let's talk about the hurdle. Let's jump into the hurdle. We got our guy, Theo G in the chat. Great spot for Bill Belichick. He says NIL and you can win the ACC. I think they can win the ACC.
Oh yeah.
Unless Dabo tries to go crazy in the old.
He don't believe in the transfer portal.
He finally sprinkled his foot yesterday. He actually got a receiver from SEMO, Southeast Missouri, which is where our guy Ryan Flournoy was from. Dynasty Barry, what's going on, brother? How we doing? Redwards, yo. Matt Dennis, what's good? What's up? Josh, how we doing? Snowman, always in the show, in the chat. And, of course, Ryan McDowell. Ryan, I appreciate you, homeboy. You're the man. Always respect. One of the greatest to ever do it in the Dynasty space. Matty,
What a back-to-back, though. Fizz's birthday yesterday, your birthday today. I mean, just a couple of 1-2 legends having back-to-back birthdays. It's a wild day. This close to the Lord and Savior's birthday, too. Christmas just around the corner. Maybe this is not a quickening. 2 legends have birthdays right around Christmas time.
Hey, you know what they say. If it's a week away, you get a week to play. I get a week. You get the whole week to have your birthday, not just a day. I don't know, something like that. I just made that up.
16 and are a woman.
I just pulled that out of my ass. I will say I pulled this up on the show I just finished with Alex. This was Din Din. You want to see Din Din tonight? Let me see if I could pop it up here.
I saw it online.
Here we go. The people that didn't see it. The lobster doesn't look great here, but I will tell you it was pretty fantastic. This is my first try at doing lobster tails.
Wait, you cooked your own dinner for your birthday? Damn.
To be honest with you, I was going to wait, and then I was like, if I wait, by the time Stephanie gets home, by the time I eat dinner, it's going to be like 9:30 by the time I get dinner. So I started cooking at like 4:30. I got some ribeyes up top there. Those are four big Goliath ribeyes, corn, homemade mashed potatoes, and we go the lobster tails, baby. I mean, I don't eat lobster tails, but I love lobster tails. I will say that.
Yeah. Hey,
treat yourself.
Good, dude. Looks delicious. Absolutely delicious.
Treat yourself. All right.
So happy birthday to you, Cody. Happy birthday, brother.
Yeah. Whatever. I don't know about whatever. Thank you, though. All right. Let's talk about the hurdle rating, baby. Let's jump into this thing. So, first and foremost, frauds. I wanted to cut out one of these teams, and I'll be honest with you who I wanted to cut out. I wanted to cut out the Seattle Seahawks. But I think I like Seattle more than I like the Chargers. And when you look at the standings where these teams sit, they're technically right there. And Geno dealt with an injury. They get the Vikings this week. We'll see what happens. But our bottom 3 teams this week, Matty, and this is the hurdle rating. We do it every single week. If you're new to the show, click that like button, click subscribe, tap in. We talk about all of the best teams in the league. We go through it, and then we'll do studs and duds from the week this week, from week 15. In the fantasy playoffs, but we'll walk all the way through the best teams in the league. And I think there's going to be a new number 1 team this week after that debacle up in Motown. But the 3 lowest ranked teams for us come in at 16, 15, and 14. The Chargers came in at 16, the Cardinals came in at 15, and the Seahawks came in at 14, all labeled frauds. So we do have a little bit of a departure here. The Rams have started to slowly climb their way north up the rankings. We'll talk about them here in a minute. But, Matty, first thoughts here from this fraudulent tier. The Seahawks, of course, deal with a 17-point, I would say, drumming against the Packers this weekend. You have the – oh, my God, my brain just went empty.
Denver this week.
Vikings this week for Seattle.
Seahawks,
Cardinals – had a 13-point win against New England, and then the Chargers had a 23-point drumming from the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, man, I really want to have a conversation about these Buccaneers. But first thoughts here with the Seahawks, Chargers, and Cardinals. Do we think they're all dead in the water? Cardinals 7-7, Chargers 8-6. They had a big win last week. Then they lose this week in despicable fashion, and the Seahawks are 8-6 as well. Again, sitting right at the top of the NFC West with the Rams, who got a 12-6 win against the Niners.
We can, institute the hurdle ratings how we see fit, and how I see fit is if I knew here today Geno Smith was done for an extended period of time, we can cut him off the list. We could pull, the playoff, the discretionary decision-making like they did last year with Florida State. We could cut him right off the list. But he might play, so they should stick around on the list for a little bit. Chargers, I think that they're frauds. Their defense has officially broken down. They've now given up 30 or more points 2 of the last 4 games. They've given up 25 or more points 3 out of the last 5. And it's just really not holding up for them. A lot of injuries on both sides of the ball. The offensive line for the Chargers hasn't been as good as I would have thought after them drafting Alt with the 5th overall pick. So I think that they're done. I think we could probably cut them off, even if they have a couple. Well, they lose this week to Denver.
That's the problem. That's the problem,
You
right?
out. Yeah, you go.
You look at some of these teams like the Chargers, it's like Broncos at home on a short week, Pats, Raiders. You're like, all right, well, that's a 10-win football team with Herbert and Harbaugh. It's probably fine. Where it's like, it's probably what I'm saying is it's like it's fine. They've played tough games against Kansas City this year, obviously twice. 10-point game to the Steelers, touchdown game to the Ravens. Like they've played tight games all year. The other one was Seattle, who's 8-6 right now. They got the Vikings, then they got to go to the Bears and to the Rams. That team could go 9-8. That team could go. I think you could see them winning all 3 as well. That's the interesting thing, and winning and going 11-6. A lot of teams are either. Who is the one team that has a brutal? We'll probably talk about it as we get here, but Broncos, Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs. I think that's kind of brutal.
That is brutal. Yeah, that's a tough one. But also, just to talk about the Cardinals real quick before we move on from the fraudulent tier, I know they handled the Patriots with ease, but they did not play good. Yeah. Marvin Harrison, we might need to have that conversation, a conversation we've kind of had to some degree, even before the season started. Now we're seeing it again. He can't beat Christian Gonzalez. Kyler Murray played like absolute dog water. They should have beat him like by 50 points. The Cardinals should have kicked the living shit. It should have been a dog walking, a statement game. Instead, it was the James Conner show. If they didn't have James Conner, what would they have done? It would have been a grit 'em out game. If Alex Van Pelt knew what the hell he was doing and didn't, avoid and take the ball out of Drake May's hands, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 within the red zone, could the Patriots have been knocking on the door? I don't know. But this was a horrible game by the Patriots, and the Cardinals won, but they should have dog walked them. It should have been a statement game at home against the Patriots. They didn't do so. So for me, these 3 teams are on fraud alert. I mean, you can call them frauds, but they might stick around. But I'm, a couple losses here and there. I mean, if the Vikings do away with the Seahawks in slight work, the Broncos take care of business Thursday night, we might be down 2 teams next week.
Speaking of the Broncos, let's talk about the next tier. Tier number 4. I call them this week unlikely, but fun. So at 13, we got the Houston Texans, consensus. Washington at 12, consensus. And Denver at 11, again, consensus. I think Washington's fun. Jaden Daniels, I think they're fun. They can win games. They got some tough ones coming up here over the course of the next couple of weeks. Philadelphia mainly this week. They got a home game against the Falcons next week. That thing just got flexed into Sunday Night Football, so the NFL thinks it's going to be worth something. I thought Vikings-Packers was going to get Sunday Night Football, but that tells me Vikings-Lions will be Sunday night, week 18 for the division. Week 18, then Washington has to go to Dallas, who Dallas has won 3 of the last 4 games. Granted, bad football teams, but they've gotten wins. So Washington's got a little bit of a situation to deal with here. Unlikely, but fun. Unlikely to win a championship, that is. Houston, maybe the most brutal schedule is just having the 3 games in 10-day thing. They beat the Miami Dolphins, which the Dolphins, speaking of having conversations, Mike McDaniel might need to have a conversation with his wife about selling their house. Kansas City on the 21st on Saturday in Kansas City. We obviously know they can't do that in the winter, so we'll see if they can do it potentially with no Mahomes. Baltimore at home, so there's potentially 2 straight losses. That puts them at 9-7, and then they finish out in Tennessee. Unlikely, but fun. We talk about the Denver Broncos. We just brought them up a minute ago. I think we've been maybe one of the teams we've had the most fun talking about this year. The Broncos had a 3-game win streak, a 2-game win streak. They lost a couple of tight ones to the Chargers, and the Chiefs got blown to smithereens by the Ravens, which we kind of called in Baltimore. And then a 4-game win streak now the last 5 weeks. Falcons, Raiders, Browns, Colts. Should win. Now at Chargers, at Bengals, home against the Chiefs to close this thing out. Unlikely that this is a championship contender, but I think they're fun. What do you think about this tier of teams? I think 2 of them are a year away. Houston's probably the same boat. Houston's like built to win now, but they just still seem like they're like maybe Diggs would have made a big difference. I don't know. I'm just still not sold. I just still think they're pretty bullshit.
You could have named this tier a year away because actually, the thing about the Texans, though, they were better last year. They had a little bit more lightning in a bottle last year. They've fallen kind of flat this year. And like you mentioned it, they may finish the season 9-8, 10-7. And they've already locked up the division, so they don't care. Pat Mahomes practiced in full this afternoon, so who knows if he misses time. But like you said, they got 3 tough ones to end the year. Because at Tennessee, I know they stink, but Tennessee will be playing for the culture of their locker room. And sometimes when those divisional teams find a spark, it can just make it a little bit tougher. But I think they're all fun. The most fun will be Washington. What I need to see out of Washington is a rookie quarterback to keep playing damn good football. And it's going to start this week at home against the Eagles. The Eagles embarrassed them when they played 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. I know the score ended up being close, but the game was not that close. It was pretty handily decided by the Eagles. Falcons should be a win, but breaking news, they are making the change to Michael Penix Jr. starting this week. So how does that look now? Is that as easy of a matchup as it has been, playing against Falcons? And the Cowboys, they're pesky. So what you need to see right now out of Jaden Daniels is just for him to make sure that he doesn't hit that rookie wall, first and foremost, but also, really put up some competitive games against a tough schedule. And the Broncos are playing with house money. It doesn't matter at this point. I mean, last week they were getting walked up and down their home field by the Colts. Jonathan Taylor pulls the Leon Lett, throws the ball out of the end zone. All right, maybe I'm being dramatic, but he drops the ball a fraction of a second before he's in the end zone, changed the whole game around, and then the Broncos end up beating the living dog shit out of the Colts. I like the Broncos. I love what Sean Payton's done. I think that program is on the up and up. But yeah, of these 3 teams, I don't want to get ahead of my skis here, but I want to say I think I would rather be a fan of the Commanders and a fan of the Broncos before the Texans. Am I out of bounds? I mean, they had such a good year last year, but it feels like, I don't know. It feels like last year might have been a little bit more lightning in a bottle than the beginning of something special. What do you think?
I think Houston's good, but I don't think they're great. I think Stroud is really good. I'm not quite sure what's missing other than offensive line. Obviously, I don't think they can win without better and improved offensive line. They'll need to address that obviously in the offseason. But I think from what this defense has shown you this year, which Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter are the answer on the edge, and they're getting good pressure and they're playing good defense and stuff. But I think they missed Stephon Diggs. I think they need offensive line help, and quite frankly, that division, they're kind of in a spot where they should be thankful that Jacksonville and Tennessee are inept, and that the Colts are also borderline inept. Like the Colts hypothetically could, I don't know. The Colts are 6-8 and they're not eliminated from the playoffs. And the Colts have Tennessee, the Giants, and the Jags to close this thing out, which is the, without a doubt, easiest schedule remaining.
Yep.
And they can't win the division, I think, because they lost to Houston twice, but they could hypothetically make the playoffs, which is just crazy. But so Houston's like, yeah, they're in a situation that they just kind of can milk it, and this has been one of the worst divisions in football since Peyton Manning left. The Colts, however long ago that was, a decade and a half ago. But I don't know. Houston's just kind of in a spot that they can just take advantage of being slightly above average, and it doesn't really help them improve the team on a yearly basis, I don't think. But I don't know what that looks like without like. I thought Joe Mixon's energy had run out, and now I wonder what it looks like. Next year. I wonder what that looks like next year. I wonder if Joe Mixon's still. Joe Mixon's been really good. And
Joe Mixon's been awesome, and in fantasy football purposes, he's been one of the most valuable guys in all of fantasy. I don't know if he's lost a step. To be honest, it feels like to me that where they have a huge problem is in their interior line. Yeah. They're getting some of the worst guard play in the NFL in terms of pressure up the middle, run offense, and I think unfortunately now, as a team builder, is it Nick Caserio, right? I believe it's Nick Caserio, who's got to run the show. Yeah, Caserio in Houston. He's got to now, I think, treat Stroud. Stroud's not Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Lamar. He's not one of these guys, I don't think, that can go out there and win despite of his offense. I think he's going to consistently need weapons and weapons and weapons, which I think that's going to present problems for this team to be able to win. If you're constantly having to make sure that they're deep on the offensive side of the ball, you can't put as much focus on the defense and on the offensive line. So I do think that could present some issues, but they're in a division that they could be the kings of for the next 5 years because I mean, these, like you mentioned, all these teams are either rudderless or downright terrible. So I think there's still better days ahead for the Texans, and back-to-back years in the postseason after all the awful start, awful seasons that fan base had to endure. I think they'll take it.
Let's talk about this next tier. Tier number 3. That's exactly what my thoughts are right now. Number 10. It's a tie for 10 and 9. Rams and Tampa. The Rams coming off of a 12-6 game against the Niners, off of a 44-42 game against the Bills. Two polar opposite game scripts, what's needed from an offense and a defensive standpoint, and they flourish in both situations, both borderline primetime. This one, obviously, Thursday night. The Buffalo game was the late kick. New Orleans the week before that, 21-14, narrow. That was after a loss against Philly on Sunday Night Football. They go Jets this week in New York, cross country, as far as you can get, coast to coast, and then Cardinals, Seahawks at home. They win 1. They'll get to 9-6. They win 2. That should clinch a playoff spot for the Rams at 10-6. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did the coast-to-coast thing already this week. They went to Los Angeles and laid a goddamn whooping on the Chargers. 4-game win streak now out of the bye after a 4-game losing streak against Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, San Fran. They go into the bye. They come out. They go on the road in 3 of 4 games at the Giants, at the Panthers, at the Chargers, and home against the Raiders. And they just completely walk in and walk out with the rug and the Cheetos. And this Tampa Bay team, I mean, Mike Evans is getting going. Jalen McMillan's getting going. It doesn't matter who's running the football. They're getting it going. And I talked about it this morning with Fizz on the cook-up. This team just has the maybe blueprint, but the architecture to succeed in the playoffs. Because Baker's done it. Baker's won a playoff game before. Baker's been to the playoffs before. Baker's a leader. I think this team has it, and obviously the Rams have it because they've done it. I think this is a very interesting tier, Matty, and I don't quite know what to do with it because I don't think that you can properly say, oh, yeah, the Rams are better than Baltimore or Tampa's better than Minnesota. Like on paper, neither of those things make sense. So I think they're just kind of stuck in this not purgatory spot, but a spot where they're not going to get respected probably past. I don't know. I don't think they can be overrated or underrated rest of season. I think they're just stuck in this spot.
Yeah, I agree. I do think there's kind of just going to we'll talk about the next tier when we get there. Both of these teams, though, I mean, this is the 3 and 4 seeds right now in the NFC. They're playing great football. What I'll say about the Rams, they're going to look back on the schedule, getting absolutely dog walked by the Cardinals, losing to the Bears, losing to the Dolphins. Those are 3 wins that they should have under their belt. This team right now should be 11-3. They should be in cruise control of the NFC West, not having to, go across country and beat a team that's at least playing better than the Jets, and then 2 home games in division. That's not where exactly you want to be. But Sean McVay, you got to have faith in what he does in LA. They draft as good as anyone in the NFL. Just over these last few years. I mean, imagine losing Aaron Donald. And I'm not saying that they don't miss him, but I mean, getting Turner and Fiske and Verse, they've kind of made it so that they don't really miss Aaron Donald, which is unbelievable. And they're able to kind of patch it together in the secondary. Matthew Stafford's going to game. He's going to ball out. He's just a gamer, especially with Nakua and Kupp. And the test of good teams, the mark of good teams, is exactly what you've seen out of them for the last 2 weeks. How do you want to do it, Buffalo? Okay, you want to play arena football? All right, we'll beat you. We'll score 44 points. Oh, we want to be in the rain? You want to play 1912 football? Little Bay City T? Little wishbone action? All right, San Fran, we'll beat you. This team's good, and this is a team that I don't want to see in the playoffs. And on the Tampa Bay side of things, I guess I mean, the layman analysis would just say ditto. This isn't a team I want to play in the playoffs either. They have a good offense, a good offensive line. They're well coached. Their defensive unit isn't great, but they're at least able to keep teams from, bend don't break. I know that's kind of a silly, a little kind of silly, what do you call it, cliche, but coming out of the bye, 7 points allowed, 23, 13, 17. Bend don't break works. Bend don't break gets you in the playoffs, and if I'm the Eagles, I don't want to see the Buccaneers in the first round of the NFC playoffs. I'll tell you that right now.
I kind of feel the same way. I think it's a bad matchup for a lot of teams. And I also read something this morning about Godwin potentially being back if they make it to a certain point in the playoffs. They didn't say a date, but they just said if they make a run in the playoffs, Godwin could be back. So they win a game. Could you imagine the juice you'd get back if you won a game, get Godwin back to potentially go play, I don't know, a Minnesota or a Detroit or whoever in the next round? You go on the road again as the underdog, but you get back a guy that I don't even know if he'd be 100% or not, but I just think that'd be also super interesting. So interesting tier. We'll continue to talk about it and monitor the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams. The next tier.
Wait. We can't move on yet, Cody.
Why?
Our guy Jay Jackson in the chat, super chat.
Oh,
for Cody, birthday shots. Shout out to Jay.
I'll be honest with you. I drank my drink and that just leaked on the computer. That's cool.
Short circuit.
I could go to the kitchen and get my thing, but
that'll work.
I'll take one for you after, for sure. Jay Jackson, appreciate you. We appreciate you tapping in, man. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's big stuff right there. CCCT, Tier 2.
What does that stand for, CCCT?
It's not the Russian Empire? Is that what it was? CCCP?
No, that's CCCP.
Soviet Union, there you go. CCCT is actually the Conference Championship Contenders tier. Bet you didn't think of that one.
No, but I'll tell you, Mr. Dunlap would not be happy if you bringing up those commies.
CCCT, Conference Championship Contenders tier. And we start out here at number 8, Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens have kind of been on a steady trickle down. So you go back to week 13, we had them as a consensus number 6. Week 12, we had them as a consensus 5. And you go back before that, we had them all the way up to number 3 in week 11. And they've just tink, 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 all the way down now to 7.5, because I have them 7 and Matty has them 8. We have Pittsburgh Steelers coming in at 7. Green Bay coming in at 6. And Minnesota as the consensus number 5 overall team. The best team not in tier 1 would be the Minnesota Vikings, and that's one consensus. As I said, Minnesota for Matty and I both having them at 5. Like I said, you have Baltimore at 8. I have them 7. You have Pittsburgh 6. I have Pittsburgh 8. You have Green Bay 7. I have Green Bay 6. So in this tier, these teams have kind of been movers and shakers, I would say, as the season has gone on. Conference championship contenders, the group ahead of them obviously has 2 AFC teams, 2 NFC teams, so we would consider that favorites to make the respective conference championship. However, there's a team not listed yet that we haven't talked about that's in the NFC that's dealing with some injuries. We have a team in the AFC that, like you said, their quarterback had a practice today, but dealing with some injuries and a retirement that maybe we can just wait to talk about that one until the offseason, because people could run circles around a guy getting cut by the Kansas City Chiefs. But we're not going to talk about that because he's kind of a midget and we respect all players, and we didn't take him at the 101 ever. But that's here nor there. CCCT, Steelers, Packers, Vikings, and Ravens. Matty, Kiwoom, what do we think of this group here? Because I like the Packers roster. I think Baltimore has the most gas when the playoffs get here due to Derrick Henry. I think their team is built for January football. The Steelers, I'm just not quite sold on January football for Pittsburgh right now with how this thing is built. I think they could have probably used another weapon. Pickens not being healthy definitely doesn't help. And then Minnesota, I'm not quite sure if this thing, obviously they're a Minnesota football team, so they're used to the being outside, but they haven't really played a cold weather game. They played in Chicago a month ago. They won. But I don't know. I don't know what this looks like if they have to go to Philadelphia. I don't really buy it. I don't buy Minnesota if they have to go to Philadelphia type of situation here in the playoffs. What do you think of this group?
I think that even within this tier, I think there's a pretty sizable break between the NFC teams and the AFC teams. I'm with you. I think Pittsburgh right now is just doing what Pittsburgh does. They win football games, another 10-win season for Mike Tomlin. But, I mean, they're not really built to go through a playoff run, in my opinion. TJ Watt banged up again.
Yeah.
And at what point does he just stay healthy? This team needs him. He's one of the most valuable players in the entire league, and it feels like every single year he ends up getting hurt when they need him most. And I know it's not his fault. He plays tough, and you can't fault a guy for being a high motor guy. But, man, it's frustrating as a fan. Now, as I would imagine also as a fan specifically of the Steelers, you just be like, damn, can we just get this guy playing right in December and January? Because now he's hobbled once again. I don't feel missed time, but I mean, you don't come up lame on non-contact and then just be 100%. So I don't know if they're built to win over the longevity. And as we've sank the Ravens, they're just another, let's say they come out and kick the shit out of the Steelers. There's another flip-flop there. It's just becoming like, wake me up when the playoffs are here for that division. Whereas when I watch the Vikings, I mean, we had the conversation last weekend. We're ready to turn the page for JJ, but holy shit is Sam Darnold looking good. And he's just managing the team well, winning games. Like that game in Monday Night Football was not a good, like it wasn't a beating. It was just a controlled divisional game where they didn't let the Bears breathe for a second, and they were able to put points on the board. Didn't mind that it was field goals. Rashard went off. He had 5 field goals.
Mm-hmm.
Did his thing. And it was just like, all right, let's just suffocate the Bears. But of course, in the tough game, that's what you have to do. And I still feel the same about the Packers. I mean, it was a wake-up call on Sunday Night Football because the Seahawks were what, 2 games, 3-week win streak, climbing to the top of the NFC West. They were looking good. They were looking formidable. Nah, they got absolutely bullied. What that game reminded me of is like when you get like a hot shot Big Ten team, then they go to Iowa City, have to play the Hawkeyes, and they just get bulldozed. And that's what it felt like to me. It just felt like the Seahawks were on the up and up, and then they went up against the Packers, and the Packers just came out of that game, was up 14-0, absolutely schmenzered them from the get-go. And that's just what I think about this NFC North division. It's the Bears, and then it's 3 really, really good teams. I mean, you could make the argument that after the Bills and Chiefs, and we have a couple more, we'll talk about another team in that tier, but I mean, these two are right there. The Vikings, we have, Vikings and Packers are right there.
That game on Monday night, the Vikings game, you like you said, it wasn't a dominating performance. What I thought it was kind of a death by like 1,000 cuts. Was
Yeah.
because, and I brought this up this morning with Fizz. They kept saying Aikman kept saying, "Oh yeah, the Bears just got over 70 rushing yards in the night. Man, they're running the football." And I was thinking to myself, first off, they want you to run the football. Fine, you're 1 for 12 on third down.
Mhm.
Every time that they would move the football 30, 40 yards on a drive, and then they'd shit down their leg. They'd go for it on 4th and 1 and fail. Go for it on 4th and 1 and fail. Get down to the red zone, shoot yourself in the leg. Like things that bad teams do and that good teams stop. That's what I thought.
Mhm.
I think that game was a well executed example. And I also came away from that game thinking, I think this game ended exactly how it was supposed to end. Like the Vikings were supposed to win this thing by more than 2 scores because they're thoroughly 2 scores better than the Bears. You know what I'm saying? Like when they make like a number at the sportsbook, it's like, oh, this team's 6.5 points better on a neutral field. It's like, I think the Vikings are legitimately 2 touchdowns better than the Bears, period. And like, I thought that game was a great example of just that. Tier 1, the top dogs, the Lions, played the Bills. We talked about this coming into the week. It's going to be a big game. What happened? The Bills absolutely showed the Lions.
No,
in
not
their
the Bills. Josh Allen.
God damn, man. They went in there. They peed on the rug. They shit in their toilet, didn't flush it. They ate their food. They slept on their bed. They did everything. And the Lions kept fighting back. Banged up and all. Nolan McNeil, new Carlton Davis, lost David Montgomery. I was very impressed with that. Your old Lion team, your same old Lions would roll over and get trounced. That game ends up 42 to, or what was it at that one point? 45-28. That Ray Davis touchdown, 45-28. That game milks out from there. 45-28, that's how it ends. Lions go down, score. Bills get a field goal. Lions go down, score 12 seconds left. They make this thing a 6-point game when in reality it was closer to, a 15, 16-point game. And the Lions, kept, and Goff needs to get a lot of credit for it. Almost 5 Bills, 5 tugs. And Amon-Ra and Laporta get there, maybe too late in the season for you owners of Sam Laporta, but he got you there. Kansas City loses Mahomes, gets the win. Philadelphia, maybe the hottest team in all of football right now. I know we talk about Buffalo being hot. Buffalo, obviously, last week lost to the Rams, who we just talked about. But the hottest team in football, obviously we talked about the Vikings a minute ago, is 100% the Philadelphia Eagles. 12-2 right now and haven't lost since the bye. They started out 2-2, lost to the Bucs and Falcons, and they just went on an absolute tear. They found the passing game. They got to finish with all 3 divisional games now: Washington, Dallas, New York. If I'm scared of one team right now, I know Buffalo with Josh Allen. Like, I'm not afraid of the Buffalo Bills. I'm afraid of Josh Allen.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Detroit is getting beaten with injuries right now. Beaten. They're going through a lot of adversity right now. I'm not sure if they can get through the other side with the number 1 seed. I have a feeling it's either going to be Philly or Minnesota that ends up with it. We'll see what the health looks like over the course of the next 3 weeks. Minnesota obviously gets them in Detroit, which will be a task in itself to beat them. Eagles are right on the heels, though, to get that number 1 seed. If everything goes through Philly, good luck. Good fucking luck having everything go through Philly. But I think Philly's the hottest team in football right now. Maybe the best team in football. I don't have them ranked that way. Number 4, we have Philadelphia. 3 and 2 are a tie between Detroit and Kansas City. And number 1, we have Buffalo. The reason that Buffalo's number 1 is because I have them number 1, you have them number 2, but I dropped Kansas City down to 4, which is the worst out of this group, because I need to see some dominance. I want to see some dominance. And They're 13-1, and I think if they beat Houston this week, they'll pretty much have the home field advantage clinched, which I think is big. I want to ask you this, though. This is my one question. You can answer the rest of the stuff that I brought up however you want to, but my one question is, you brought up Pat Mahomes a minute ago. He got into practice. You have Houston on Saturday. 3 games in 10 days. You have Houston on Saturday, and then on Christmas on Wednesday, you got Pitt, and you finish at Denver. Denver's going to be coming for your balls because Denver needs to win to get in. Houston at home, at Pitt, at Denver. Do you let Carson Wentz take this Houston game, give Mahomes a week because you know you need to win that Pittsburgh game, or do you push Mahomes out there against Houston and risk potentially, worsening this ankle injury, etc.? And then if you drop that Houston game because he gets hurt in the middle of it or something, you drop the Pittsburgh game, you potentially lose your number 1 seed.
I would not play Patrick Mahomes against the Texans by any circumstances, but it sounds like he's going to play, practice in full. And Andy Reid was quoted saying if he's out there, he'll play. If he's not, he won't. Well, he was out there. So it sounds like he's going to play. I think they could beat the Texans. And I think if I was
with Wentz,
what I would do is I'd go game by game. If we beat the Texans, he ain't playing against the Steelers. If we beat the Steelers, he ain't playing against the Denver Broncos. And I think I would just manage it that way because you want the bye. I think the bye is important. But
of course, yeah.
Going through this tier, and I will just start and end with. Well, I'll start with the Chiefs, and I'll make it brief. I'm at the point now. I just want them. I don't even want them in the rankings. They've transcended the ratings, because they once again have the best record in the NFL. I don't care if it's not pretty. It's just good team. Winning is a gene. Winning is a culture. Winning is a skill in and of itself. They have it in spades. Call it black magic, call it voodoo, call it whatever you want. The Chiefs know how to win football games. They know the opposing team will piss down their leg and they can take advantage. That is the way of the winning team. And they could lose some of these games and it's still, who cares? Because the most frustrating thing it's going to be as fantasy managers is watching Travis Kelce go for a rack every single game in the playoffs when he's the reason why you're getting bounced right now. More on him when we do studs and duds. So for me, they're not, I rank them number 1, but it might as well just have been a 0. There's just nothing left to talk about when it comes to the Chiefs. We'll see them in the playoffs. Doesn't matter. Now for the other 3 teams, the Lions, I think that the Lions might be the worst team in this tier. And I know that sounds crazy. We just had them in a tier of their own. But these injuries keep piling up, and that's just the factor of the game. It's just a big deal. And their superpower is their offensive line. Do you know when an offensive line doesn't matter? When you're playing in games like they just played in. When you're not trying to slow the game down, you're trying to keep up. The offensive line is not nearly as important as it's been. And I'm not saying that Jahmyr Gibbs isn't nasty. But what made that offense special was being able to put both of those guys in and just absolutely baffle defenses and just go right up the middle with either guy or just trick them both. Now going back to just Jahmyr Gibbs, it's not going to remove, for fantasy purposes, it's obviously great, but for winning purposes, I don't think it's a winning recipe. And pound for pound, superstar to superstar, they have the worst roster in this tier. With the injuries, it's just quarterback. They have the least exciting quarterback in this tier. They have a great Amon-Ra St. Brown, but after that, Jameson Williams okay, Tim Patrick's okay. They don't have the firepower that these other teams have, and so I don't know if I don't know if this year's going to end up being their year, which sucks because their team was built like a freaking racehorse. They were ready to rock and roll, and these injuries just keep piling up. And, I hate to say it, but I think that now as we stand here, they're the most vulnerable. And then, of course, their division. Can't factor that in. I mean, that's a tough division that they're going to have to get through. The Bills are Josh Allen. I mean, I don't think that they win the Super Bowl because I think that if he has a dud game and he doesn't go Super Saiyan, they're going to lose. I mean, they would have lost their last 2 games if it wasn't for Josh Allen going absolutely nuclear, one of which they did lose. They did lose against the Rams, right? And he with 6 touchdowns. No quarterback has had 3 touchdowns on the ground, 3 in the air ever in the NFL. Last time a guy had 6 touchdowns was in 1950. So this guy's playing superhuman. Yes, the last time a quarterback had 6 touchdowns like that was 1950.
No, wait, you're saying like that, like they were as far as rushing and
6 total was 1950, right?
no.
Manning had that 5 TD game.
Ben Roethlisberger had 6 touchdown games. Like
maybe it was 2 on the ground, 3 in the air. I don't know what it was, but I know
it
was the first
time. To be a mix.
But I know the mix of 3 and 3 was the first time ever. That I do know. But either way, it's just Josh Allen. And then the Eagles are the best team in the league. The Eagles are the best football team in the NFL. Their defense, their special teams, their offense, they're on a massive winning streak right now. You know, they haven't lost since the bye. And they've been challenged. It's not like their schedule is cupcakes. They went to LA, laid it down against the Rams, beat the Rams.
A lot of teams haven't been able to do it.
Right. Beat the Ravens on the road. Beat the Steelers last week, and that Steelers game wasn't even close. They suffocated that team. And they're taking care of business where they have to. I don't see this team having many deficits, having any problems right now. Their biggest problem was that there was a squabble between their quarterback and their wide receiver, and then they both were on the same page and absolutely lit it up Sunday. I just think that they're in a league of their own for skill wise. The Bills are in the league of their own with quarterback. The Chiefs are the Chiefs, and then the Lions. I'm just like, it sucks that they're getting these injuries at the wrong time because they're now kind of becoming not really a scary defensive unit. Their offense will score. But I mean, I don't know. Yeah, right. I mean, listen, I understand you're sad to hear this.
We got a resident Detroit Lion.
Yeah, and I get it. It sucks to hear. Their defense is all in the IR. Yeah, they got a nasty defensive squad in the IR, but they're not coming back. And their offense will be fine. But I mean, their offense wasn't fine when they needed to get ahead against the Bills either. They sputtered at first. Their offense got going when it was just a track meet. It ain't going to be a track meet in the playoffs. And if they lose home field and have to go to Lambeau, have to go to Philly, playing the Link, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun for the Lions. And I hate to say it because I'm definitely rooting for them as just like the story. You know, when we grew up, the Lions have been a laughing joke. I got a Joey Harrington jersey. I've been following, football for a very long time. And this has been the best iteration of this team. So I'm pulling for them, hoping they can get it together. But as I see these 4 teams trending, they're looking like they might be 4-4 in this tier.
Since Thanksgiving, when the Detroit Lions were 10-1 going into Thanksgiving, the last 3 games, all home games, home against the Bears, home against the Pack, home against the Bills. Their plus-minus scoring differential is 0, and they've given up 99 points. Home games, plus-minus. They're 2-1, 0, because they won 2 games by 3 points, divisional games. I get it. And then they had the 6-point loss to the Bills. 99 points. I get it. Injuries. You got to win the football game. And we just saw the Bills lose to the Rams the week before. We like the Lions, but man, it's a tough spot to be sitting in. Last question here, Matty. We'll get off the hurdle ratings because we've been talking about them for a gosh darn hour. But
big week. It was a big week.
I do think, potentially, if I can get my damn face back. There we go. One question. Today's December 17th. I got one birthday wish. I didn't wish anything. I wish you'd answer this question.
Okay. Okay.
Michael Penix, starting quarterback for the Falcons today. We took the Falcons and the Niners out of the hurdle rating 2 weeks ago. Week 15. When week 15 start. Actually, we took them out last week. The Falcons are 7-7. They switched quarterbacks. They're a game out of first place with Tampa Bay. They got the Giants at home to the Commanders and the Panthers at home. They win those 3, they're 10-7. Tampa has to go to Dallas, home against the Panthers, home against the Saints. They lose 1, they're 10-7. The Falcons beat Tampa twice. Should we put Michael Penix and the Falcons back into the hurdle rating at number 17 since today's December 17th and Penix got the job during the show? Is it a sign that we should put him back in? Or is Atlanta going to fumble the bag just like they did signing Kirk Cousins in the first place?
They could get back in the rankings if they beat the Commanders next week. Because beating the Giants this week is, who cares? A home game against the Giants, they should smash. They go to Washington, beat Jaden Daniels on Sunday Night Football. They'll be in the ranking. They'll be in the rankings.
Penix and Daniels on Sunday Night Football.
Your tinfoil hat conspiracy brain goes, oh, did Raheem get a little text from Goodell saying, hey, we flexed you in the Sunday night. We don't want to see
how many kids.
We don't want to see it. We don't want to see him in there. We don't care about you like that. We don't care about the history with him in Washington. We want the rookies doing it on Sunday night.
Or Penix throws a pick and then they bring Cousins in and Cousins goes nuclear. And then he gets, you like that in the opposing.
It's a win-win for the league. The Shield loves it. Either way, the Shield loves it.
All right, let's do studs and duds.
All right, so we got 3 studs, 3 duds. We'll make it pretty quick here because we talked a lot about the hurdle ratings. So, Cody, let's start with one of your studs from Week 15, Mike Evans.
Dude, this guy, I'm not going to go ape shit like I did this morning on the cook-up. If you want to see that, you can go check out the cook-up. But Mike Evans, not only in this game, kind of put himself right back in the conversation to get to that 1,000-yard marker. He's 251 yards away. He needs like 84 per game or 86 per game from here on out. Without this nuclear 159 burger against the Chargers, probably wasn't going to get there. I think he's going to go nuclear from here on out. Mike Evans is Hall of Fame worthy. Mike Evans is a hell of a story. 2,000-yard seasons at A&M, obviously 10,000-yard seasons here. Mike Evans, without Mike Evans, Tampa Bay is an entirely different football team, obviously, because they lost Godwin. This team would not be in the situation they are. But, man, this guy just needs his flowers, man. The fact that in year 11 he's still doing this, no injuries, or he's actually fought through injuries through that course of those 11 seasons, but no injuries, fought through it, potentially closing in on a actuality 13th consecutive season if you count college with 1,000 yards. Stud.
Oh, he's the man, and he killed me in my home league. But I gotta respect it. I love me, Mike Evans. And he does it every year in the fantasy playoffs. Every year in the fantasy playoffs. Like remember, Brady. It was him, Godwin, and Brady won championships in the fantasy championship this year. It was the first round. He goes banana land. He's still got some games that he can do more in the fantasy playoffs. My first dud, Travis Kelce. What a dud this weekend against the Browns. It wasn't really a tough matchup, and he got the targets. 8 targets, but he only caught 4 of them, 27 yards, 6.7 fantasy points. Since that back-to-back-to-back 20-point outburst in weeks 8, 9, and 10, it's not been good for Kelce. 3 fantasy points, 12, 14, 9.5, 7 this past week. I don't think he looks old. It's just the way they're using him is hyper fragile. Number 1 in the NFL at tight ends, unrealized air yards. Still 7th in yak. He's got a pretty good juke rate. He's been very evasive with the ball in his hands. He's just getting these rinky-dink passes. They are treating him with kid gloves and with glass, like he's made of glass. And this Noah Gray thing, fuck this Noah Gray thing. No one's playing Noah Gray. And yet he just keeps catching these touchdowns when you're hoping it's Travis Kelce. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, what really will crescendo this whole suck bag into the season in fantasy for Kelce is as we're all sitting around watching him in the wild card weekend or the AFC playoffs. I mean, the AFC divisional or the championship round of the Super Bowl. He's going to have 10 catches, 125 yards, some tutties, absolutely kill it. But this past weekend, big time dud for Travis Kelce.
I wonder, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have him probably in those postseason, those playoff. We do a playoff pool every year. I don't do it, but I enter it. Back home, they do a league, and you get to pick one player from every team for the duration of the playoff. I'm probably going to pick Kelce just because I think a lot of people will go elsewhere. Hopkins, Worthy, Butker, Mahomes, whatever they do, I don't know how many people will pick Kelce just because it's been, this guy's going to end up with 100 catches, I would bet. He's at 84 right now. But it's been underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, he's tight end 5 in fantasy. It's not terrible. But it's the same thing as last year. Week 15 last year, 7.8. Week 16, 9.4 fantasy points. Week 17, 4.6 fantasy points. And then in the playoffs, 7 catches, 71 yards, 5 catches, 75 yards, 2 TDs, 11 catches, 116 yards and a touchdown, and then a Super Bowl, 9 catches for 93 yards. It's coming. The games are coming. They're not playing for December. They're playing for the Super Bowl, and that sucks for us in fantasy. But what hasn't sucked for fantasy and what didn't suck in week 15 was Malik Neighbors.
And we kind of talked. I mean, we didn't kind of talk about anything. We pretty much told and said this was going to happen before the year, that Malik Neighbors was going to be trustworthy throughout the season. 90 catches, 900 yards. He's pretty much a shoe-in to crack 1,000 yards, which he's not even going to be the first rookie to do it because Brock Bowers is 32 yards away and Brian Thomas is like 44 yards away. But I still do believe Neighbors will get there. Neighbors got there again for us in week 15, a bona fide stud. Maybe not the most consistent throughout the year, but I would venture to say, I do think he was much more worthwhile your draft pick than was Marvin Harrison Jr. Was that his name?
Mm-hmm.
That's that receiver that was the number 1 for everybody, right? I think most people, right?
Yeah.
Most people, right? I think that's who it was. Not us though. Malik Neighbors, kind of becoming a model of consistency with dog shit quarterback play. Bad quarterback play. And what we've gotten is 3 straight top 10 games to begin the year. And even though it felt like Neighbors just like fell off because he switched from, Daniel Jones to DeVito to Locke to DeVito to the plumber, back to DeVito, back to Locke. I think Dayball threw some passes one game. I think Joe Brady came out of the upstairs, and now we're back to DeVito, I think. And then DeVito got hurt this weekend, right? And guess what? Through all of that, he's still the wide receiver 10 on the season. He was wide receiver 9 in week 15 when you needed him in the quarters. Going to double down this week in the semifinals. I think he's going to end the season like he began the season. 3 straight top 10 games. Give us 3 straight top 10 games to finish the season in the semis, quarters, and the championship. And Matty, even between those 3 and the final 3, he never fell below wide receiver 35. You know who did fall below wide receiver 35? Almost every week. You might as well just put it up since I just walked into it. My dud. I know I just skipped around. I probably shouldn't have, but I walked kind of right into the door.
Okay. Hey, you got to let the man. It's your birthday. You can cry if you want to.
All I'm going to say, dude, a dud. And I can't even believe we have to say a dud because he okey-doked us. He went in. Shouldn't be upset, man. I shouldn't be upset. He gave us a wide receiver 3 game in week 12. Fell off the face of the earth. Came back, gave us a 15-week, 19-pointer in week 14. And then what do we get for trusting him? What do we get for ranking him high? What do we get for believing in Jalen Waddle? Matty, what do we get? We got a straight up kick in not the dick, a kick in the balls by Jalen Waddle. A 0. A donut. A donut. About as good as Darnell Mooney. Could have put him on here too. A donut.
I do
in
not
the
like
playoffs.
that.
A donut like that. And guess
I
what
do
he has
not
done?
like
Like we talked about. I just brought up as kind of my weave in here. What Neighbors has done for you all year. Neighbors has been into the top 35 every single game all year. This guy was into the top 35 once until week 12. And that was week 1. So your whole season has been a pain in the ass. And this is not only a dud from this week with the donut, this is a dud to define the year from Jalen Waddle.
I'm also nervous about Waddle going forward. Let's say they do let McDaniel go. Well, they're probably going to want to get a coach that's tougher, right? That's the criticism against the Dolphins. You know what tough coaches don't typically do? Throw the ball a shitload. They don't usually have all these pass catchers and all this stuff to go around. So if Tyreek is back or if Jonnu Smith is here to stay, I don't know if I love Jalen Waddle's long-term outlook like I had a year ago. So that's a good guy to bring up. And one thing on Neighbors that I will say, because I think this stat kind of surprised me even, 1 week this season, Cody, where he had under double digits. One time. That's it. Even when it's the worst, where it looks bad, he's getting you double-digit targets. And what did we say about Neighbors when we started the season? You give this guy 125-plus targets, he's going to ball out. Well, even with missing some games, 140 targets from Malik Neighbors. So absolute stud. My dud from week 15, Derrick Henry. We talked about it on the walkthrough. We were anticipating just a bulldozer type of game. We were he was a guy I thought could go for like 150 yards. I thought they were just going to trounce the Giants on the ground. They didn't. He only carried the ball 14 times, only touched the ball 14 times, no targets, no catches, 67 yards, and that's it. No tutties. They just didn't need him. It was the Lamar show. And, I don't know how it looks. When he was absolutely just ripping it apart was when Harbaugh came out and said that we needed an identity. We needed to run the ball. We needed to use someone and kind of facilitate an offense through a player. It ended up being Derrick Henry. Well, it's reverted back to Lamar, and it's been fine. That they beat the Giants, whatnot. So I don't know how that looks going forward. I would imagine he gets right over these next 2 games with Fantasy Plus, but week 15, absolute dud for Josh for Derrick Henry. And the last guy, my stud of week 15, the stud of week 15, a guy that is single-handedly bringing teams deep into the fantasy playoffs. If you needed wins to get in and get going, well, how does 92 total points fucking sound? Because he's had back-to-back weeks over 40 fantasy points. He's had a bajillion touchdowns. He's just been unreal. He's had 80 rushing yards, 60 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 5 passing touchdowns over these last 2 weeks. It's been nuts. Josh Allen's been berserko mode, and I don't think it's going to slow down. They need to win. They're trying to catch the Chiefs, and look at the schedule. Look at the semis. The New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are on the schedule this week, and it looks like Josh Allen will have his way yet again, but he was an absolute stud in week 15.
There it is. I got completely ganked by Goff. I had Goff and Neighbors on this team, dude. And they combined for 70 points for me this week. And I lost. I lost because Mooney gave me a donut. Adunze gave me 5. I actually lost because I had 3 Falcons on my team. And now I get Michael Penix back to take over. And I'm depressed. Matty, we're not going to be depressed anymore.
No.
Studs and duds. The hurdle here every single week. 8 p.m. Eastern time. Matty, I appreciate you, man. I always enjoy sitting here talking that shit. unfiltered. Probably costs us a couple views that I swear as much as I do.
It's always fun though. It's always fun.
But it's fantasy football. Click the like button, click subscribe. We appreciate every single person that has come in here, tapped in, talk in the chat. I appreciate all the birthday wishes as always. I appreciate everybody. Jay Jackson, we appreciate the super chat. Everybody, we appreciate you guys for tapping in and tuning in to The Hurdle. He's Matty Kiwoom, Matty Kiwoom on X. I'm Cody Carpentier at Cody Carpentier. Till next time, we appreciate you. We love you. And we'll see you.
Yo, 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 yo. Papa 40